Hello, everybody. Well, it's been 2 weeks because the last time I came to speak with you, um, I talked about the fact that I was about to do a media fast and I invited you to join me. So, if you did join me, how'd it go? What was it like? For my own part, I didn't really notice much of a difference. I did have to resist the Instagram scroll. I find that's a kind of a difficult one to let go of sometimes. But otherwise, because I don't really, I don't watch television or listen to mainstream news, I had to stay away from my alternative news sources, and I found it very restful for a week. To not have any of that noise, even the sources that I respect, and I'm not calling them noise, but you know how it is in your head when when you're just being influenced by other voices, right? You start thinking about them and you start turning things over in your mind, and so it can get noisy, and if you have an emotional response to something that you hear, then it can get kind of noisy inside. So I really did appreciate the break, and I noticed after I did the video about the media fast, going into the media fast, I noticed that there were lots of people, at least on Instagram, that I saw who were going to be participating in a media fast at the same time. So I'm very curious as to the effect. Well, I know for sure that the world did not fall apart when we stopped feeding it with our attention. The noise always needs us. We don't need it. It needs us to stay alive. And that was the whole purpose for doing this media fast in the first place. So anyway, this is the thread that I want to kind of pull on today. If the noise runs on our attention, and if the world quite literally runs on our energy, and I think that people have not quite realized that that's not a metaphor. This is absolutely a fact of reality, that our human energy actually runs this world and provides everything, and the attention that we pour into the narratives and the stories out there and the noise out there keeps it going, right? It keeps that world going. Okay, so we really need to deeply realize the power that we have here with our attention. So our energy runs the world, our attention keeps it going, our belief in it keeps it alive. And so today I want to bring that same principle into more of on the personal level, into conflict, okay? Into, for example, the grudges that we carry, the fights that we keep replaying, the injustices that we're still holding on to, the guilt. Sometimes it's not about somebody else. Sometimes it's about something you can't let go, in yourself. The blame that we keep assigning to other people, to the outside world, to conditions, or the blame we keep assigning to ourselves. Peace has to start in the same place that the noise starts. It's with what we choose to keep feeding, essentially, right? So we can stop feeding the noise out there with our attention, with our angst and our worry, and we can do the same for ourselves. We can stop nurturing the inner world of hurts, the inner world of wounds, the inner world of blame, and all of the stuff that keeps us in conflict, right? And we see that reflection out there in the world, right? So because we are fractal beings, this is something I talk about all the time, and I want to go a bit more deep into it today. What repeats in us repeats around us because of the fractal nature of the human being, okay? We are existing in a state of fractal compression. We are existing in a nested fractal universe, okay? Now, a fractal, in case you're not sure about that word, generally speaking, like the sort of definition of a fractal is a pattern that repeats at every scale, right? So, and each repetition of the pattern is a full, complete expression of the pattern in its own right. So whether we're talking about a universe or a galaxy or a solar system, you know, each human carries the whole pattern inside it at its own scale, okay? And why? We're the only full universal fractal, okay? And in order to understand why, you have to understand the cosmology of the universe that it was never taught to us. This galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, is a fractal compression of all the other galaxies that exist in the multiverse, right? And so it contains all of the light, all of the energy, all of the wisdom, all of the experience, all of every other galaxy in existence compressed into itself, into the stars. Imagine each star in our galaxy is the fractal compression of another galaxy, an entire galaxy. Okay. If you want to really dive deep into this cosmology, I recommend very, very highly the work of George Kavassilis. He really is speaking from an authentic place of direct experience. And when I came across his teachings, they really, really resonated for me, made a whole lot of sense. So anyway, our Milky Way galaxy is a fractal compression of all the other existing galaxies, right? And then the compression gets more and more intense. You know, it reduces to individual stars like our sun. Therefore, our sun contains all the light of all the stars in the universe. And then it reduces, you know, the Earth is a fractal compression of our solar system, which contains everything already, right, at its own scale. And then we humans are the fractal compression of the sun and the earth, right? All of that information, all of that. Why would it be this way? Well, because the human avatar is the only one that is capable of metabolizing and integrating the entirety of the universal journey that we've each of us been on, which is why we're so valuable, which is why our energy runs the world, quite literally. So what does this have to do with what I'm talking about here? Well, you are a fractal, right? You are a full universal fractal. That means you can metabolize within your own being. You can metabolize anything, right? Anything that has happened to you, any story from your own life, any wounding, any pain, you can process inwardly, okay? You can metabolize, you can integrate fully right within your own being. You don't need anything else to do it, okay? And as you metabolize your own personal stories, anything that you can remember, you are actually dissolving those conflicts on a universal scale, okay? It's not just about our own life. It's not just about our own personal issues. Whatever we resolve for ourselves, we resolve not only for the collective here, we resolve for the universe, because we are a fractal of the universe. So what is repeating in us is repeating around us to infinity, or at least to the extent that this universe is finite, right? So it resonates throughout the universe. It's just like, you know, the pebble in the water, and the waves go out as far as they can go, right? And then come back. Whatever is going on with us is going on a universal scale. Okay? I'm not asking you to believe anything, but I think it would be very valuable if you would feel into that for yourself. Feel into that if you can sense the truth of it. Okay, because our minds can't understand this. It's our minds, are not capable of understanding this. But there's something in us that recognizes the resonance of truth, that remembers truth, right? And so if this is resonating for you, I would just encourage you to sit with it, feel it, all right? We are so much more powerful than we know. That's why there's such a campaign against us, to make us feel small and guilty and, inadequate, not enough, need to be enhanced, all that stuff. No, we don't need that. We're already full universal fractals. We're powering this entire planet with our energy, with our belief. All right? So, when you look at things this way, it really changes what cleaning up your own life means, doesn't it? I mean, if your life were a diminished copy of something realer happening somewhere else, or a story that you could shrug off as not quite real, or something that doesn't really matter, then, well, your patterns wouldn't carry much weight, would they? But as a universal fractal, you are far from being a diminished copy. This is not a story that you can opt out of. Everything that you do resonates throughout the entire universe. Every thought that we think, every gain that we make, just in terms of, integrating our shadow, is a massive gain for the integration of shadow across the entire universe. So, we are the whole pattern, fully present at our scale. This is just mind-blowing, right? So the grudge that you hold is not a small private habit that nobody else knows about. It is having an effect throughout this universe. It is the pattern, right? The patterns that are inside us are the patterns that are out there. Okay, so this is not to overwhelm you. It's to empower you to realize, wow. I mean, so often we feel helpless when we contemplate the state of the world. We've got to stop waiting for the world to go first, like griping about the state of things out there while waiting for it to change. Waiting for it to change. It's not going to change. Everything is a reflection of us, and nothing can happen without us, without our consent. You want the world to change so that you can feel at peace. No, that's backwards. It's backwards. Feel at peace. Create the peace within yourself. Now, do that first. Of course, I understand the impulse. I mean, real harm is happening. Real injustice exists out there for certain. I'm not asking anybody to look away from that, but I'm asking a different question, actually. Where is your actual authority? Right? Where does our actual authority lie? We don't have direct control over a government. We don't have direct control over a war. We don't control the choices that other people make. Okay, so that is not under our jurisdiction, let's say. But we do have direct control over one thing, and that's our inner state. And nobody else has control over that, as much as we would like to pretend that it does, right? Look, I have my days too where I'm like, things feel really heavy, Things feel really heavy, and I feel heavy, and I feel like, I wish, I could find some relief from, what I'm feeling in the collective, or, But ultimately, it's my responsibility to influence my own inner state. Right? If I say that I can't do that, then it's a lie. It's just not true. So, waiting for the outer world to become peaceful before we can choose peace inside ourselves is totally backward. Peace in the world comes after peace in a person. You'll say, well, there's never been peace in the world. Maybe so. We haven't known who we are, have we? There've only been a very few people, a handful. in all this time who knew exactly what they were. The rest of us are waking up en masse, though, now. Okay? And it's up to us to do, we have to, choose how long this thing goes on. We have to realize that we have power and responsibility with regard to how long everything goes on. If you are constantly getting triggered, constantly getting upset, constantly feeling frustrated and shaking your fist at the world and wishing everything would change and wishing, politicians would behave or something like that, I mean, it's ludicrous. It's not going to happen. It happens here. It happens in us. It happens in us from enough people choosing it inside themselves first. We just don't, there's no more excuses. We cannot afford any more excuses around this question. So it's time to take inventory. Like, where does the conflict still live in you? Where does the conflict still live in me? Okay? This is the part that asks something of us, right? To go looking. Not at the world outside. That can just, we can turn away from that and pay attention to what's going on inside in our own inner landscape. That's where it's at. And there's no place else where it's at. So we can do an inner inventory. How? Well, it's very simple. It happens as soon as you close your eyes. As soon as you close your eyes, settle down, relax, and start breathing all of the things that are uncomfortable, right? All of the things that you don't want to sit with, all of the things that you want to escape through the scroll, or by doing something else, or by, I have to do this, or I have to do that, I know we all have things to do, right? But we've got to start taking inventory, right? So whatever comes up when we are alone, in our own quiet, that's the stuff that we can work with. It's that simple, right? If you feel uncomfortable, if you feel sad, if you feel anxious about something, whatever it is, whatever is coming up, that is the stuff. That is the stuff that's asking for your attention. It's that simple. And if you get there and you don't feel like anything is coming up, well, you can ask yourself questions. Where am I still holding a grudge? Even just a little bit. Where am I still blaming, quietly, secretly, for something that happened years ago? Like, where do I still need to feel right, even in an argument that ended a long time ago, right? What old wounds are we still nursing, waiting for an apology that may never come? We can get really specific about this, Whose name still raises your heart rate a little bit when you hear it? Go looking there. What conversation are you still rehearsing in the shower? Right? This is the stuff that, maybe we think it's insignificant. Maybe we think it doesn't really matter. Maybe we think, well, these are just my own personal problems, and I shouldn't be worrying about this stuff when the world is the way it is. Well, no, this is exactly what we need to pay attention to. This is what's ours to dissolve. This is the area where we have authority. We don't have authority over a government, a political leader, an army. We don't have authority there. We have authority within. And our unresolved conflicts, inner conflicts, are absolutely reflected in the conflicts, on the world scale, on the scale of the solar system, on the scale of the cosmos. I mean, we are full universal fractals. We've got to make this connection. You think, oh, how can that be related? It is related because you are a full universal fractal, and the pattern repeats at the universal level. I hope this can bring you some peace because, it simplifies everything radically. When you start realizing, oh, well, there's nothing for me to do running around out there and complaining and, feeling helpless and feeling overwhelmed and, having my nervous system all out of whack because I'm constantly being triggered by, whatever bites, whatever the news feed says, whatever the scroll says. No, that is a form of ongoing conflict. And we each can resolve that within ourselves. It's as simple as that. So, we're really at a choice point now, everybody. I understand that feeling of, boy, things are just really feels like it's dragging on. Everything out there feels like it's dragging on, Well, that feeling of something dragging on indicates that we're waiting for something. We're waiting for something out there to change so we can be okay. We're waiting for something out there to change so that we can feel better, so that we can feel peaceful, so that new earth can start. New earth is already happening. It is a state of awareness. It is a state of being. And it's each person's responsibility. If you want to live in new earth, make new earth inside you. Right? Exiting conflict is a choice. And that's the reframe that I want to offer. Right? Exiting conflict is not something that happens to us when the circumstances finally line up. It's a decision that we make to let go of the grudge or whatever it is, right? To resolve our own inner conflict. And that does not mean that whatever happened is fine. It never had to be fine for you to release it in the first place. Forgiveness is not, a verdict on the other person's behavior. It's a decision about what you keep carrying or don't, right? And, I want to revisit forgiveness for just a second. I think sometimes maybe we're not going deeply enough into that word. If you can understand something, right? If you can, or understand something, if you can understand somebody else's behavior, understand why they did what they did, not that you agree with it, but you can put yourself in their shoes, right? And go, okay, yeah. Well, then suddenly the need for forgiveness is not the same, right? It's not like this mountain you have to climb. As soon as you understand, as soon as you walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, right? As soon as you put yourself in their place, as soon as you, imagine the life that they've lived and, up until that moment when that thing happened between you, it's really hard to blame a person anymore. It doesn't mean you have to like it. You don't have to like what happened. You don't have to like them, right? But understanding, understanding, for me kind of, does away with the need for forgiveness. As soon as you understand it, there's no need to forgive anymore because you get it. Right? You don't have to do this big noble gesture like, I forgive you. Right? It's the same with yourself. If there's something that you have been holding against yourself and you just can't let it go, and you're still rehashing it in your head and, the remorse comes up and you feel awful and, it's the same exercise. What do you need in order to forgive yourself? As Katie Bishop said to me one time. What do you need in order to forgive yourself? Well, you need to understand why you did what you did at the time. Why you couldn't have made any other choice. Or you would have. If we can, do better, then we do better. Right? Exiting conflict is a choice. It's a choice to stop limiting ourselves, right? Stop hemming ourselves in through what we haven't let go of with regard to another or situation, circumstance, or whatever, or with regard to ourselves. So, there's all kinds of ways that we close the valve on our heart power, right? Refuse to let the real life flow through us direct from source, right? All these little ways that we limit that flow through us, through, the need to be right, through judgment, through the grudge, through the sense of having been done wrong, through the sense of being unable to forgive yourself for something, right? These are all ways that we shut down the flow of life force, right? The flow of life through us from the source. So if we want a better world, we've got to open up that valve, right? Let the life flow through us. Decide to fully live. Choose to live, not just choose to exist and stay here because you don't have any other choice, right? Choose to live fully. Choose to turn yourself inside out. Let your light out. Be fully yourself. We can't do that when we've got, these conflicts, these unresolved conflicts gumming up the works inside here, right? So, we need to ask ourselves what it actually costs us, not just us, but the entire existence. So we know that we're universal fractals. What it costs to keep holding on to stuff. All right? It costs our peace, obviously, and our presence in the current moment. And it's a ridiculous diminishment of our power. So when we're doing that, it's like we're refusing to know who we actually are. It's like, I'd rather stay with the small version of me. This is the only thing I know, right? Let's see what would happen if we could stop diminishing ourselves all the time and let it out. Let the light out. Then we're unstoppable. This is the dissolution of separation consciousness, right? Because ever since we were cut off from source, at least, to a point, because obviously we're not cut off from source completely. We are that valuable because of our connection to source, direct and unmediated connection to source. So maybe only a trickle gets through. But, that separation consciousness, this habit we have of dividing the world into, me and them, right and wrong. God is out there somewhere, and then there's little old me. Yeah, we usually think of it as something that plays out between groups of people, but it starts within ourselves, right? It starts within our self-perception. When we perceive ourselves as alone, when we perceive ourselves as an isolated fragment, right? That's not the same thing at all as a fractal. A fragment is a piece of something. It's not whole, right? A fractal is the whole shebang. We are fractals, not fragments. But we've been taught that we're fragments. And this conditioning over many, many, many generations and thousands of years through the systems, through the religions, through the institutions, through the educational system, through you name it, all of the systems. It's just been repeated to the point where we just accept it as reality. And because we are so powerful, whatever we accept as reality becomes reality. So it's time to dissolve this consciousness of separation and remember who we really are. So, how do we do that? Well, we notice wherever the sequestration is within ourselves, the walls, the inner divisions, the things that we keep apart from other parts of ourselves, all the ways that we're divided inside. And again, it's, like I was saying before, go looking for those places that are not comfortable. Go looking. As soon as you close your eyes and sit, that's when it starts to bubble up, so you don't have to go looking very hard. All right, so it's the same goes for separation consciousness. It's like, where am I feeling like I'm a fragment? Where am I feeling powerless? Where am I feeling, right? This is just programming. This is just brainwashing. This is just mind control, right? Exiting it is now a choice, and it's a choice that we've got to make if we want to see the changes that we're talking about. Stop waiting for them to happen separate from us. Separation consciousness doesn't happen separate from us. It happens through us. It's happening through us. That's how everything happens. Through us. All right. So, look, there's no reason to suffer any longer. So, I just want to say that plainly. There's no rule requiring us to keep suffering. Suffering that continues past the point that it taught you anything is just a habit. It's just a habit at that point. And we can be done with it right now. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be pain sometimes. Of course, pain is not the same thing as suffering. Perhaps some suffering was necessary in the past because we were still asleep. And the suffering got so intense that we started to wake up, right? That's often how it works. But if it's outlived its usefulness to you, then it's just a habit. It's just hanging on. We can't afford that stuff anymore. We cannot afford that anymore. The world is changing. The energy is changing. Where are you going to place yourself? Where are you positioning yourself in these timelines? It has to be chosen. So, yeah, I think what I'm really saying here is that we've got to claim our creator power now. We're not just naming it. We're not just believing in it. At some point, we've got to step up. We've got to step up and claim it. Right? Many of us have heard the words and spoken the words, I am a creator being. Without really living as if we believed those words fully. I mean, how would you live if you knew that that was true? How would you live if you really knew? If you knew that that was true? Claiming that power looks like taking direct responsibility for your own emotional state, for one, right? Instead of assigning that job to your circumstances or somebody else. Looks like, changing your actual behavior in a specific relationship rather than repeating the same complaint about that relationship to anybody who will listen. It's about setting boundaries, what you will and will not perpetuate in your life. Okay? And just to reiterate, this is never a call to deny real harm or skip, accountability. Boundaries matter. Naming what happened still matters. But what changes is that you stop waiting for the other person's apology or a better set of circumstances before you can choose your own peace. Right? really claiming your power as a creator. It's like, well, the buck stops here. It stops with me. And everything starts here. So I'm just, really going to claim my circumstances, my life, and say, well, I'm the creator of this. It doesn't mean you're blaming yourself for anything. It's a decision to own your power. That's what responsibility is. And when you're a full universal fractal of the source, you have a lot of power. I don't even think that and I speak for myself too, even remotely knowing what that actually means. I'm starting to sense it. It's just at the edges, It's like trying to remember a dream, that was really powerful when you were having it, but like the next day you're like, oh, and it just feels like it's slipping away, but you can just feel still the edges of it. Only in reverse. Feeling the edges of it, and it's going to become more and more clear and present what that power is. And we've got to stop diminishing ourselves. So a little practice this week, keeping it simple. Maybe there's one person or one situation that you've been holding onto in some way or another that is not adding happiness to your life. Okay? And ask what you would actually need to feel in order to let it go. Not what you would need from the other person. Okay? It's not about anybody else but ourselves. Doesn't also mean agreeing with whatever happened, if there's something like that. It just means releasing your hold on it. Right? Releasing that need to I can't let this go. I can't. It's not right. I have to hold on to it because it's not right. That logic doesn't make any sense. So maybe you can make it real by writing down one sentence of release, of letting go, right? Even if you never send it to anybody, it's really for you anyway, right? Maybe there's a disagreement where you still feel like you need to be right. And so, ask if being right is worth, what it's costing you. Choose one part of yourself that you've been at war with, some inner conflict. Make a small peace with that. Do it today. I'm going to do it when we get off Instagram. What happens in here is happening out there. Full universal fractals of the source. That's what we are. So if we want to see the conflict out there come to an end, we've got to metabolize and integrate our own shadow, our own conflicts, and stop waiting for things to happen out there, right? I mean, why not do another media fast? It certainly makes it easier when you don't have that stuff shouting at you all the time, distracting you, right? All the work happens inside. There's just no getting away from it, guys. There's just no getting away from it. We don't get to take a pass on this. We just don't. But it's so rewarding when you realize, okay, I am a creator being. I'm done with suffering. I only want what's real. So last week we practiced withdrawing our attention from the noise that needs us in order to keep itself running, right? So this week it's similar, but this practice is now turning inward. So we're withdrawing our energy from conflicts that need our continued participation inwardly in order to survive, right? You are the fractal compression of this universe. having a life, source existing through you as you. What's to feel bad about in there? Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your openness. Thank you for your listening. Thank you for the work that you do inside your own being to bring forth a new consciousness, a new earth, a new existence. We're all in this together. See you next time.